Hello and welcome to my presentation about the topic Towards Mobile Holographic Storytelling at Historic Sites. My name is Jessica Bitter and Ulrike Spierling is my co-author and my supervisor. To begin with, I want to give you a short overview of what I want to talk about. First, I will give you a short introduction into the topic, followed by the state of the art. Then comes the transfer from the tablet application to HoloLens 2, which is followed by our user evaluation. In the end, I will give you a short conclusion. Let's dive right into the introduction. The preceding work to our project was the Spirit project. The outcome was a handheld AR application with which the visitors could meet ghosts of Roman historic inhabitants right in front of the buildings of the German Saalburg Museum. Our current work is to transfer this application to the HoloLens 2. Our aim hereby is to keep the interaction patterns and the experience as similar as possible to the original application. The long-term goal is to create the same content for different devices in the future. We followed a design research approach in the sense of building a prototype to understand the principles of a concept. We implemented the previously existing content of the tablet museum application into a new application for the HoloLens 2. On the image below that, you can see the HoloLens application in action. Why do we want to transfer an existing handheld AR application to the HoloLens? Well, museums are places for learning. They exhibit cultural artifacts or natural and fossil finds, thus conveying factual heritage knowledge. In addition, they enable real-life experiences because exposed objects and sites appear as present witnesses of the past. In the last several years, museums have begun to use emerging technologies such as augmented reality to enhance physical exhibits with virtual information or to provide pure virtual realities with storytelling. With AR, it is not only possible to add digital information, but also to enrich an otherwise non-interactive site with human lifelike experiences. In our research, we found that there are, of course, many projects in the general area of AR and museums. On the top right image, you can see one of these loosely connected projects. However, there is a lack of applications that are specifically located in the area of museum navigation in the combination with the HoloLens and volumetric filming. It is not yet fully explored how to best use time-based media, such as film storytelling, together with 3D immersive technologies, especially for learning applications. It is essential that users can perceive the content and time while interacting in space. Hence, previous work in 360-degree filming can be relevant for us. One example that we want to highlight, which comes as close as possible to our project, is the project of O'Dwyer et al., which took place in the Long Room at Trinity College in Dublin. You can see the project on the bottom right image. They developed a narrative application with a volumetric filmed actor, which works both on a tablet and on the HoloLens 1. They also compared the immersive effects of both devices, as we want to do. However, the story in the application is linear and the character is stationary. There are no interactions possible except of walking around the character. Let's have a look at the interaction patterns of the original Spirit application. First of all, we have the encounter mode, in which the visitor can meet the ghost after triggering the first scene, which you can see on the right image. Arrows indicate that you need to turn left to reveal the next scene. In the middle image, this motion is visualized. The original application already tried to implement a pseudo-spatial experience by letting the user explore the environment around the main point of view. In addition, we have the search mode. In the bottom left image, you can see the map where the visitors can track their movements through the museum. There's also a stencil to help the visitors find the right buildings for the next scenes in the bottom right image. In the bar menu at the bottom of the application, visitors can find all the facts that they have gathered throughout the visit. How did we transfer the original application to the HoloLens 2? As a starting point, we used the same media material from the tablet application also for our HoloLens application. Our main focus was the multidirectional interaction pattern of the encounter mode. As you can see on the top right image, we used poster images of the original Roman fort buildings as image targets in our office to simulate the museum. Our prototype was office only also for the user testing. In the bottom image, you can see the printable version of our image target, which users could use in their living spaces. To stay true to our goal to be as close as possible to the tablet experience, we used two approaches for the encounter mode. In the first approach, user follows story, the story unfolds around the user spatially. I want to show you a video, which you can see on the left side, to illustrate this approach. The dialogues in the video are in German, so you might not understand them. However, it's not crucial for you to understand the dialogues. I rather would like to ask you to pay attention to the jingle, which introduces the next part of the scene. Of course, if you would be wearing the HoloLens, the sound would be spatial. This means that the sound indicates the location of the next part. I recommend wearing headphones for the video to have a better stereo experience of the sound.
Sie umlaufen das Lager von beiden Seiten.
Wir brauchen mehr Zeit. Das halbe Dorf ist noch hier draußen. Zweite Zenturie zum Osttor. Aurelia, worauf wartet ihr noch? Ab ins Lager.
Ich machte mir Sorgen. Mein bester Freund Alexander war am Morgen zum Limes geritten. Seitdem hatte ihn niemand mehr gesehen.
Die werden ihn schon finden. Komm jetzt!
The second approach is called User Trigger Story, and the main difference between the two approaches is that the next part of the scene only starts after the user has turned around. As seen in the graphic, the user watches the first action, then turns around to search for the next part, which is then triggered by the head motion. Last but not least, the search mode is identical to the search mode from the tablet application. While visitors search for the right building, a stencil appears in their field of view. This is illustrated in the left image. The read mode was not possible to transfer from the tablet application due to the lack of a display on the HoloLens. Thus, we decided on a hand menu, but we expected this to be less convenient than the tablet menu. This notion was confirmed in the user evaluation. On the right images, you can see how the menu was accessed. The users have to look at their palm and then the hand menu shows up. Additional information is gathered in another submenu that you can see in the bottom image. Let's proceed with our user evaluation. The evaluation was conducted remotely due to COVID-19. We had 16 users in total, 10 of them were female and 6 were male. The average age was about 33 years. However, the age span was 22 to 59 years. 7 users knew the previous tablet application before and 3 even used it. 12 testers have never used any kind of head-mounted device before. Our main focus was to look at the immersion and presence factors. Thus, our main questions were which of the two approaches contributes more to the understanding of the experience and how the presence and immersion is perceived if 2D videos are used in the HoloLens. This is our Likert scale score from a subset of the questions that we asked our testers. I would like to mention that this is not the final evaluation, but a formative one that gives us indications for the future work. In the first set of questions that you can see on the top, we aimed at learning how easy the application was to use after understanding how to interact with it. Concerning the first approach, it is evident that most testers strongly agreed that it was easy to use. Concerning the second approach, the agreement is still high, but one tester did not agree with the statement. This shows that it was easier to just follow the story instead of triggering parts of it. The second set of questions aimed at learning how the overall experience in the approaches was. Like before, the graphic shows that most of the testers especially liked the experience of following an evolving story without needing to intervene. Still, the second approach performed not radically worse, with 7 people agreeing that the experience of triggering the next part of a scene is good. The last set of questions that you can see here concerns both approaches. The results are more inconsistent than before. More people had a neutral opinion or even disagreed with the statements. The distance between the user and the ghost has a vague tendency to be positive, whereas the angles and the places where the ghosts appear evoked mixed opinions. Lastly, it was surprising to notice that 10 people thought the presence of the 2D video ghosts was good or even very good. We asked the test users to also give qualitative explanations of their rating. It is important to mention that most users mentioned the audio cues as being very important next to the visual cues. With the help of the spatial sound, they could find the next part of the scenes better. It was more similar to orientating themselves in the real world. When it comes to the menus, as mentioned before, the testers stated that they were quite difficult to use. Of course, this was also because of the innovative character of our menus, but they also need refinement when it comes to usability. As we approach the end of this presentation, I want to look back at what we learned. In this paper, we transferred the existing Spirit application and its content from a tablet device to the HoloLens 2. We had 2 approaches to do this. In the first approach, user follows story, the story evolved around the user linearly and without the need of intervention. Through following the moving spatial sound and the visual cues, the user could follow the action. In contrast, the second approach, user triggers story, grew around the idea of a user-induced triggering. After watching the first part of the scene, the user had to find the next part first before the action continued. We also conducted a user test to determine how well our application performs in terms of presence and usability. We learned a lot during this project, but the main points are that both approaches deserve further investigation. It is also important to note that the audio cues were perceived as equally important to the visual cues when it comes to orientation within the application. We were happy to see that the 2D videos performed better than anticipated, because it was also time-saving to use pre-produced videos and text in the application. Still, we expect that the presence and immersion would enhance greatly when using novel approaches, such as volumetric filming, in the future. In the following steps down the road towards mobile holographic storytelling at historic sites, we want to develop new specific interaction patterns for the HoloLens. In addition, we want to produce content that is not only tailored to the HoloLens or the tablet, but for both devices. We also want to further investigate the potential of both approaches that we used. Last but not least, we also want to overcome the restrictions that we face in the current HoloLens application, for example when it comes to the hand menu. If you are interested in our references, as this is only a selection of them, please feel free to look into our paper. Thank you very much for your attention. We would like to thank all of the members of our research team present XR. Our research was sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, Germany.